English poetry up to 18th century. William Shakespeare occupies a position unique in the world literature. Other poets such as Homer, Dante, and the other novelists such as Leo Tolstoy, Charles Dickens have transcended national barriers, but no writer's living reputation can compare to that of William Shakespeare, whose plays written in the late 16th century and early 17th century for a small theatre are now performed and read more often in more countries than ever before. The prophecy of his great contemporary, the poet and the dramatist Ben Jonson, that Shakespeare was not an of age but of all time, has been fulfilled today. We remember Shakespeare as the greatest playwright of all time. However, in his own lifetime, he was equally revered as a poet. His first two books of poetry were reprinted many times. In fact, they were more popular in print than any of Shakespeare's plays. William Shakespeare's poem No Longer Mourn for Me When I Am Dead, that is sonnet number 71, is prescribed for our syllabus. William Shakespeare wrote sonnet number 71 in 1590 as a part of his Fair Youth sonnet sequence, which details the speaker's romantic relationship with an anonymous lover. On its own, sonnet 71 functions as a love poem in which the speaker urges the lover not to spend too much time in mourning after speaker dies. Some readers believe that the selfless sentiment isn't genuine, that the speaker actually wants the lover to never move on from their relationship. However, this reinterpretation largely draws upon elements from other sonnets in the Fair Youth sequence, making the argument difficult to defend when analyzing sonnet 71. The speaker tells the youth directly that he does not want the young man to spend long time mourning him. As soon as the bells are done ringing, he should stop feeling sad. The speaker doesn't want the youth to feel any sorrow at all. Even more his death, he goes on to tell the youth that it's important for the youth to stop loving him after he is dead. Otherwise, people are going to be able to use that love against him. Now, I will read the poem. The poem is No longer mourn for me when I am dead, then you shall hear the surely sullen bell give warning to the world that I am fled from this vile world with vilest worms to dwell. Nay, if you read these lines, remember not the hand that read it, for I love you so that I, in your sweet thoughts, would be forgot. If thinking on me then should make you if I say you look upon this verse when I, perhaps compounded, am with clay, do not so much as my poor name rehearse, but let your love even with my life decay, lest the wise world should look into your mourn and mock you with me after I am gone. This is the poem where William Shakespeare is contemplating the effect of his own death on his beloved. He insists grief for him should not last any longer than the death bells ringing, that instead the young man should forget him rather than be embraced for his continuing love. In this sonnet, the speaker is now concentrating on his own death and how the youth is to mourn him after he is deceased. The speaker tells the youth not to mourn for him when he is dead, and that the youth should only think about him as for long as it takes to tell the word of his death. The youth should only mourn as long as the surely slain bell, which marks the speaker's funeral, is ringing. The bell will ring out in order to give warning to the world that the speaker is gone and has entered into new world where it is less will, but he dwells with the will worms. Here, the poet is again and again appealing to his friend not to mourn for long time. In this poem, the poet's mood becomes increasingly morbid. Here he anticipates his own death, no longer mourn for me when I am dead, from the vile world with vile swarms to dwell. The elegiac mood expresses a sense of loss as much for the poet's departed youth as for the actual prospect of death. Note that the poet characterizes the word as vile, a strong condemnation. Here, the poet characterizes it as a vile and means it's not good. The elegiac mood is also expressed or mentioned by the poet. The poet asks the youth man not to grieve for him when he is dead, or even remember his name. Never wanted to cause the youth pain. The poet is afraid that if the young man grieves for him, his awful thoughts will replace any loving affection he may still have for the poet, as poet is with a young man. Such sentiments on the poet's part is rather especially mentioned when he then adds, but let your love even with my life decay. Given the youth slighting the poet earlier in the sonnet, at this point would not be unreasonable to ask what love the poet thinks the youth still has for him. In the final couplet of the poem, the poet urges the youth not to grieve for him, lest the wise world should look into your mourn and mock you with me after I am gone. Again, the poet is more concerned about the young man's reputation than he is about his own. Here, the poem is about love, mourning, and moving on. You no longer mourn for me when I am dead. The speaker urges a lover not to dwell on the speaker's death, and instead move on with life once the speaker is gone. Failing to do so, the speaker urges will only bring misery and pain. As such, the speaker prioritizes the lover's happiness above any desire the speaker might have to be honored in memory. The poem treats this an deeply romantic gesture, one that demonstrates the speaker's understanding that the lover will have to forget about the speaker in order to lead a fulfilling life. Instead of Here, instead, undoubtedly the troubling prospect of dying, the speaker concentrates solely on how the lover will handle this loss. The poem thus takes an almost sacrificial tone as speaker insists if that it would be better for the lover to stop thinking about speakers altogether if the such thoughts cause pain. Indeed, the speaker says, let your love, even with my life, decay, actively telling the lover to let all of their romance deteriorate in the interest of moving on. This it seems to this seems is how much the speaker cares about the lover so much that the idea of completely fading from memory after death is tolerable as long as it makes the lover's life easier. On the whole, then the speaker emerges as someone who only wants the best for a dead loved one, deeply aware of the fact that dwelling on past romance can make it difficult for a person to lead a happy life. In turn, no longer mourn for me when I am dead demonstrates not only that moving on after loss is hard but necessary, but also that putting a romantic partner's happiness above all else is sometimes the most profound and enduring expression of love. Here, before concluding this poem, we will have a look after symbolism in the poem. No longer mourn for me when I am dead mainly focuses on love, but it's also a meditation on the inevitability of death rather than resenting morality or mortality. The speaker tries to accept that there is no way to avoid death. In fact, the speaker is fairly unemotional when it comes to the inevitable prospect of leaving the world of living behind, in the same way that it would be futile for young lover to spend too much time mourning the speaker's death. The poem implies that it would be futile for the speaker to lament death's approach because death is little more than a fact of life, something that, though sad, shouldn't be dwelled upon or obsessed over, we may say. Then, in addition to this one, the speaker's unsentimental attitude towards his both death and life itself throughout the poem emphasizes the fact that there is a little use of fretting about the march of time. The speaker treats death and even bodily decay matter of factly evoking stark images of burial and decomposition. Here, the poet accepts that death is the ultimate reality or the final reality of life. In describing the living world itself as a while, the speaker even suggests that dying with a free the speaker from the nasty and unpleasantness of life. The speaker perhaps presents life as a dirty and unglamorous because doing so makes it easier to embrace the idea of dying. In any case, it is clear that the speaker recognizes that nothing can last and gradual deterioration is both natural and unavoidable. In accepting that life itself is characterized by decline and the speaker is able to face death head on. The speaker asks lover to do the same, knowing that feeling sad about the fleeting nature of life is useless. Here, the poet speaks about the death and his love for his friend. With this, I conclude. Thank you. Good day.